Welcome to Hashtag Narrative, a Football Manager podcast where we sit around the virtual campfire and recount stories from past saves. Today, we don't have the pleasure of Kev because he is ill, so a communal R, everyone. And that voice you can hear is our special guest, GoldenFM. Hello, Paul.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Hang on a minute. I'm supposed to be saying, how are you? But thank you anyway.
I jumped the gun a bit there.
You did. Don't shoot me. But yes, hello, Paul.
Hello.
I'm going to ask now, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm very much looking forward to this, and thank you for inviting me on.
That's quite all right.
Onto our virtual sofa.
Well, it's probably a bit dangerous having a sofa near a campfire, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, probably.
So, maybe...
Well, they're fireproof nowadays.
Oh, well, not that fireproof.
Well, we'll say our one's fireproof. Where are we going with this? I don't know.
You can pay for the Scotch Guarding, I'm not doing it.
I'm not sure where we're going with this.
I was going to say that is quite a random tangent. Even for me, that is...
Well, I listened to the Dr. Benji one earlier, and that was, you were having a few tangents there, but this is probably another level.
I was going to say, at least they were related to football. This is just campfires and just general
Although he was
flame
talking about Lincoln,
sofas.
wasn't he? And trains and various things like that. So
yeah, well, it's okay. That's fine. So I'm expecting now your favourite bus route. But I said bus route, not bust route.
Bus route. The number 42 in Chelmsford, I think.
Oh, is it particularly? What makes it particularly?
That's just the one I know.
Oh, so there's no sort of significant thing. It's like your first trip ever with your gran when you were 3 was on a number 46 in Chelmsford.
I don't think I've ever been on a bus with my granny, so...
Oh, well, missing
out.
There we go. She was very good company.
Well, she literally lived across the road from me, so I didn't really need to go on a bus.
Good.
Well, there's a bit of a random fact about me.
Paul has never been on a bus with his nan. It sounds like one of those awful intros. Not on this podcast particularly, but on like when you get on a, I don't know, like Take Me Out. You get the deep boomy sort of voice. Paul is 23. He comes from Chelmsford, and he's never been on a bus with his nan.
Yeah.
There we go. So that. If you ever need that later on, voiceover, I can do it. It's fine. Right, we'll get in with the question, shall we, before we embarrass myself and you further?
I think we'd better get started, yeah.
Yeah, good. Before you just leave. Right, okay, so we start with the obvious question of when did Football Manager first captivate your attention?
Well, I have told this story a few times, but anyway... It started when I was about 9 or 10. It was year 5 at school, so that's when you're 9 or 10, I think. And my best friend at the time, I used to go around his house quite a bit, and he had Championship Manager 3, which I think was the 98-99 season. Not 100% sure.
You might be right.
I think that's right. And I used to play with him quite a lot on CM3. His older brother owned it, but he let us play. And we used to take it in turns as to who would sign Robbie Keane. I remember that because he was lethal. It was just so good. So that's where it started.
That's quite amicable, though, taking it in turns, signing,
we did, yeah.
signing
it was nice. My friend he didn't take complete control. He would actually let me sign Robbie Keane from time to time, which was nice of him. And I eventually convinced my dad. I'm from a family has no interest in football whatsoever. I was the first one basically to get into football, but I managed to convince him to buy me Championship Manager 9900. It was probably a year old by that point, but I remember the first ever save. So I opened it up when he brought it home, and I remember fiddling around for about an hour trying to get the match to start. I couldn't get it to start, this first match. So I managed West Ham, my team that I support, and on the 9900 version, it started with a game in the Intertoto Cup, if you remember that competition.
Of course.
Classic. West Ham actually won that. It was just some sort of pathetic competition to qualify for the UEFA Cup at the time. So it was against some random Eastern European team, I think, and I just couldn't get it to work. So I told my dad I can't get the game to work. I thought I was going to have to take it back because it just wasn't working. But the next morning, he'd managed to get it working, even though he had no idea about football at all. And he'd actually managed to win 1-0. And he'd accidentally put Craig Forrest, the West Ham Canadian goalkeeper, up front, and he'd scored the winning goal.
That's amazing.
So this was my first ever match his first ever match, and his only ever match on Football Manager, and he managed to win 1-0 with a Craig Forrest goal.
Whose only prior achievement was conceding 9 goals to Manchester United when he was at Ipswich.
Yes, that's true, actually.
Knowledge.
Brilliant. It's the sort of knowledge you get on this show.
Yeah, well...
So that's how it all started, and it carried on from there, really, and I was awful. I was so terrible at Championship Manager to start with. Apart from when I played with my friend around his house, it was okay because he sort of guided me through it a bit. But I remember I was bottom of the table with Man United after about 3 months.
That's quite an achievement.
Into a save. And the only reason I didn't get sacked was because I resigned probably about a game before I got sacked. But I've recounted this story as well a couple of times. But I remember losing 7-1 to Leicester City, and Emil Heskey scored a hat-trick against me. And
that is a sackable offence in itself, to be honest.
I actually managed to get 3 red cards, and I think it was Barthez that was in goal at that time. It might have been Schmeichel. I think it might have either. I can't remember which Man United goalkeeper it was.
It was 99-2000. When did Schmeichel retire?
I don't know.
Did he retire after the Champions League or final, or did he play one more season?
I think he played. He played the Champions League final, didn't he?
Because that was That would have been 19. So that's 98-99.
Yeah.
And then 99-2000. I think he moved to Villa, but I might be wrong.
So I think it must have been Barthez or someone. Anyway, my goalkeeper got sent off, and then my sub-keeper got sent off. So I put David Beckham in goal, and he got sent off. Literally. So I had 3 keepers sent off. I ended up with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in goal, because he had like goalkeeping rating of 3 or 4 for some reason, and but we lost 7-1, and it wasn't a great game. So the early days of my Football Manager career were pretty atrocious, to say the least.
They do sound not particularly impressive.
Yeah, and then I know Dr. Benji talked about this, but I actually got the demo 0102 demo in box of Cheerios or Shreddies or something. They also did some other things, like they did this Championship Manager game thing.
The quiz.
I remember yeah. And there was another one with... I had 3 or 4 discs, Championship Manager discs. I can't remember what the other one was, but it was quite interesting.
I bet you could get them on eBay, and they cost an absolute fortune now.
I've still got them. I've still got the demo. You can actually play 2 seasons on that demo disc. So I was very happy to just play 2 seasons on the 0102 demo for many years. I at that age, I didn't really want to go millions of years into the future. So I had the 9900 version, where I could play as long as I wanted, or the 0102 version. And I played both of those for years until FM05 came out, and that was the next one I bought.
In fact, that's a very similar history to me, to be honest, in terms of longevity of playtime with one particular game. Got a lot of love out of 0102, a lot of love, and I think it's one thing that I've always feared to go back to. I think the nostalgia is such a powerful thing. It will it can pull you in, but at the same time, it's a destroyer of memories.
I did do 1 season on a save last year. On 0102, because you can actually download the full version for free legally now.
Oh, see, you beat me to it. I was gonna mention this for people that have never tasted it. It's completely legal to download it freely.
Yeah, it's on the FM Scout website, I think.
I'll put the links in the description because I'm a good boy like that.
You have to do something weird to make it work, though. You have to like clone something. You're much more technical than me. You probably find it easy. I managed to get it working, but.
Because you used to be able to download it from the SI website, I'm quite sure. I
think so. I don't know if maybe you still can, I don't know.
I'll look for various links, and whatever I find I'll put in the description down, but they will be legal, irrespective of anything else.
It is legal to download it for free now.
Yeah.
But it was such a fun game, even though you couldn't see anything. It was just commentary only, but you just imagine it in your head. I'd imagine Trevor Sinclair running down the wing, whipping across it, and it's just brilliant.
I think it's the same as books, though. Like, You'd think, as a medium of entertainment these days, that reading a book is not the most entertaining of things. But you see countless people claiming that, I'd much rather have read the book than watch the film.
Oh, my wife just loves books so much.
Because they envelop people. You read them and you let your imagination make the pictures for you from reading those words. And it's exactly the same reading in-game text commentary.
Yes, exactly. And I suppose that's a good comparison, really. That's what it was. Reading a book and just imagining it in your head. Because I used to love reading back then, so I suppose that's probably why I had a good affinity with Championship Manager as well.
And you could also smash through a season in a day quite comfortably.
Yeah, you could really whip through them very quickly if you really wanted to. And I guess that's what the mobile version of the game is now. For those people that missed the old style Championship Manager, you can actually play the mobile version. It's pretty similar. I know some people sort of joke about playing, like people that play mobile version and, it's not the proper version, but it's actually the version that's most similar to the old style
Yeah,
games.
I would agree with that. So
if you miss those games and you're wondering why Football Manager is so difficult and so complicated now, then go and play the mobile version, because that's
So how much have SI paid you to market all of their products?
Millions.
Oh, right, where's my cut?
I've tried mobile a couple times. I tried FM 11 mobile and 15, and I didn't really get on with it.
No, I used it as a holiday companion a few times, and then I just started taking my laptop.
It literally took me about 4 years to complete one season on FM 11 mobile. I think I had a save with Carlisle. I started it when I bought it originally, and then a couple of years ago, I just opened it randomly and realised I hadn't finished the season and completed it. I just couldn't get into it. I suppose when you're so in love with the full version, it's difficult to play mobile version. But some people do, obviously.
Well, some people are forced into it, and others like the ease. I think I once played as Blackpool, trying to do one of the challenges whilst we were on a trip to IKEA, and it didn't end well, basically because it kept on crashing. So I know I was getting quite annoyed with it. So that's my experience of mobile, not overly great.
Yeah.
So I will now move us on to the next question.
That's probably a good idea.
Which is, what has been your most favoritist ever save? And more importantly, why is it your most favoritist?
Well, I was having a look on YouTube, my old playlist to see. I
mean, it doesn't have to be one of your YouTube saves. It could have been one of yours that from any point that you've played it.
Yeah, to be honest, it probably my Regen Rovers save that I'm doing at the moment, I think, is my favourite ever save. I've got to episode 70 already that I've uploaded, and I'm just so in love with it. It's just such an incredible story, in my opinion. Just doing a cheeky plug here, really. Sorry.
You're allowed plugs whenever, but they are generally saved to the end, just saying.
But if I'm honest, it is my favourite ever save, but I'll ignore that for now and go back in time. It wouldn't be a YouTube save. I think the early days of YouTube, when I started, it was always a struggle for me to try and find a save that I could just keep going with. But prior to YouTube, it was a lot easier. I think often, and you might feel the same, YouTube can get in the way of save progression.
I think, yeah, I can.
Because you'll play a bit and then you think, I can't play anymore because I now need to record a video. Before I started YouTube, I just whizzed through seasons so quickly. I wasn't worrying about anything else. I was just playing the game for the love of the game. If you get what I mean, I think
I understand what you're saying, and I think you can get hit with both sides of that coin. Like, you'll get to the point where you think that I can't continue any further because I this is such a big game, I want to feature it. But then the other side of the coin is, I've got so many games I've got to smash through before I can get to the next big game that I want to feature.
Yes,
and so then
definitely both.
And so then you feel that like disconnect of like I'm not even paying attention to what's actually happening. I just want to get the games done. I don't even care if I win. I just want to get to this next big game. And so, normally where you may take a bit more attention or pay a bit more attention, take a bit more time to look and think how can I approach this game? Look at the analysis. You might not do that if you're trying to bash games through. And I think that can sort of perhaps ruin the bit of immersion for you as playing it, not just, recording it. And then you've also got all of the other things you've got to focus on whilst actually playing.
Yes, no, I definitely agree. And I think most people would. So before YouTube, I suppose I did have these epic saves, which I would really enjoy. Although I was never really one for taking a team from the bottom all the way to the top until FM11, when I started managing Chelmsford City for the first time ever, my hometown team. And that is probably, I'm not sure it's my, what was the question? Is it favourite ever save or greatest ever save? You've put favourite.
Your most favourite, yeah.
Because that was my greatest ever save, because in the end it became a chore. When I got to the Championship, it was a real struggle trying to get Chelmsford into the Premier League, and it became a chore. Even though it was, I wasn't doing it for YouTube or anything, I was just doing it for myself. But I was determined to get them up to the Premier League, because I took this summer, end of first year of uni, I decided during this summer I'm going to get Chelmsford City to the Premier League, and I managed it in the end. But it was a right old chore in the end.
Most people after their first year of uni generally get like a warehouse job or work in a shop. Your biggest thing was making sure you got Chelmsford promoted.
I was working at Farm Foods at the same time, to be fair, but Chelmsford City was the priority, of course.
Yeah, who'd want to put Farm Foods as a priority?
I suppose my favourite saves usually would involve the likes of West Ham, because they're the team that I supported. And when you're younger, playing Football Manager or FIFA or whatever, you'd often pick the team that you support. It's just natural, isn't it?
Yeah, your first save of the new game would always be your favourite team.
And that was always the case until YouTube came along and I started doing other things and trying to mix it up a bit. Although one of my favourite ever YouTube saves is my West Ham one from FM15. I actually just watched the last video back just before we started recording this, I was just having a look at some of my old saves, and I won the Champions League for this 2 seasons in a row. So the last ever match on this save that I did for YouTube, I won 12-11 on penalties against Chelsea in the Champions League final. It was ridiculous. Everything was going in the penalty shootout. Good old Football Manager.
Those were the days.
Another save that I'm just blabbering here, but another save that I really enjoyed was actually with Arsenal, which sounds a bit strange, considering I'm a West Ham fan, and also it's Arsenal, which is a big team, and a lot of people think, it's just boring when you're a big team, but I was only 14 at the time, so I suppose that's my excuse. But it was on FM 08, I think. Yeah, FM 08. And I went 2 whole seasons unbeaten in every single competition.
That's quite a feat.
So, yeah, that's one of my greatest ever achievements. Even if it is with a big team, I suppose it's a bit easier to do that, isn't it?
The thing is, though, it's perhaps even harder as a bigger team to not lose against when you play the real low of the low in your division. Because they will just shut up shop, and there's only, you've got so much that you can do. You can destroy morale with an awful team talk. So even if your tactics are on point, it doesn't matter. That goes completely out of the window if you happen to demotivate them, or they get complacent, which is perhaps the worst of everything. Like once they think they can win and they just don't play well.
Yeah, definitely.
So
yeah, I suppose overall, Chelmsford City and Regen Rovers stand out as being my favourite ever saves.
So why would you include Regen Rovers as one of your favourite saves?
I suppose it's often short-term memory, isn't it? You sort of you often forget the amazing times from old saves, or just generally in life. You often remember the thing that's in the most recent memory, but I genuinely do believe this is my favourite ever save, because I've created this story which is quite unique. That I only sign regens, so there's no real life footballers involved. Obviously there are on opposition teams, but for my team they're all fake players, and I've created it does feel like a story, and you could write a book.
It does kind of remind me of those books. I don't know if you had them when you were at school. Like there was a set of books, and I can't remember what they're called, but they focused on a young lad who was a goalkeeper, and he had like a grandfather who was his father figure. For they didn't explain the disappearance of the dad in the book,
like The Journey.
Yeah, but it was exactly like that. But he was like 9 years old, but playing in like a team who are much older than he was, but he was their best player, and he was and it just followed. It was like a series of books, and it followed his progress through. And but he wasn't a real player or anything like that. But it was a beautiful narrative, and you always knew that he was going to save the penalty or score a header from a corner, a la Craig Forrest.
I don't know if I read those ones, but there were some similar ones in my local library that I read about like a 9 or 10-year-old kid. I don't know if he was a goalkeeper or just an outfield player. But I attempted to write some of these myself. When I was about 12 or 13, I went through this phase of really wanting to become a writer, and I actually wrote quite a few football stories. They were probably terrible, but I enjoyed them nevertheless.
I love how you give with one hand and taketh away with the other from yourself.
That's me, yeah.
But
I've probably got them somewhere.
Oh, please read one out. That would be tremendous.
Probably got one somewhere.
Excellent. We can all critique it together. Everyone's listening now, waiting with bated breath or bated ears.
I remember when I used to write, though, I'd sort of think I'll just write down really quickly the story, so I'd sort of whiz through. It wouldn't be well written, but I thought when I'm about 25, one day I'll fill in the gaps and make it sound like a good book. So maybe I should do that. Maybe I should turn it into a good book.
And you could use your Regen Rovers names
now that I'm 25.
For characters.
Yeah, I haven't told anyone this, but I have thought possibly about writing a Regen Rovers book, but I don't know. I probably don't have the time, to be honest.
Yeah, that sounds like a rather daunting project.
Yeah, if I was to, I'd have to rewatch the whole thing and then turn it into a book. And then I'd think, what's the point? Because it's on YouTube anyway. You can just go and watch it. It's the wrong way around. You turn a book into a film. You don't turn a film into a book.
Yeah, that never ends well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't think that would work.
So I suppose now is a natural sort of movement onto favourite player from that or any other save or any standout transfers. Now, I suppose with you signing Regens, that makes it quite a difficult question to answer. But it's quite a captivating one. I'd be interested to see if you have any favourite players from other saves that you've not featured as your favourite saves, but for some reason or other they really stand out for you.
Yeah, there's definitely a few players that stand out. My favourite ever player is Pablo Piatti. Who, have you heard of him?
I have. I don't think I've ever signed him myself, but
on FM08 he was insane. And my friend, who incidentally introduced me to Championship Manager, came into school one day. I think he'd used the FM Scout thing. What was it called? Genie Scout.
Oh, Genie
back
Scout,
in the day,
yeah.
Which I never used, but he did occasionally. And he came into school and basically told everyone about this player, Pablo Piatti, who could sign for like $500,000, and he'd even go to championship clubs. And he just turned into an incredible attacking midfielder. I signed him for pretty much every team that I managed on FM08, including Arsenal, so he was part of the team that became my invincible team. And he was just so good. Assists galore, he scored goals. He's just such an all-rounded attacking midfielder. I signed him for Leicester City in the Championship as well, and he helped me get promotion. So he's my favourite ever player. Also, part of that Arsenal team, I had Carlos Vila and Nicholas Bentner as my strike partnership, and they were unbelievable. They both scored 50 goals each in one season for Arsenal.
That's a bit of throwback for you there.
Yeah. Anthony Van Den Boer.
Oh, yeah. I think 05 was his peak, wasn't it, I think?
05, he was good on 08 as well, because he was so versatile.
Him and Company, that was the first time that they become sort of common knowledge that they might possibly be something.
Company and Van Den Boer are part of that Arsenal team as well that I produced. And Arturo Vidal, who at the time was best played as a right back, but he just like in real life, and you can see on Football Manager, he can play anywhere. He's just Arturo Vidal is definitely up there with being one of my favourite ever Football Manager players as well. So good. And more recently, I know Fox in the Box said this as well, but Yuri Tielemans on FM15, I had him. He was insane, as was Patrick Roberts. Just talking about my West Ham save on FM15, in the last season he scored 35 goals and got 23 assists for me in one season, in that last season of West Ham, which was insane. And he was only about 20 at the time as well, so ridiculous.
With those, I never really got sort of far enough in to sign those sort of like the common or more commonly known sort of wonder kids.
Yeah.
So I never really, I sort of, I suppose I live vicariously through others who have signed them, so I know I'm aware of them. But I kind of liked the joy of actually finding one completely by accident, and so I tried to stay away from like the player guide forums and things like that when I was younger, just because I wanted to have, I mean, even if someone else had heard of them before, that wouldn't bother me. It would be more the fact that I found them on my own. I've not looked for them. Although Piatti does sound like he's got a bit of the Stefan Selikovic about him from CMO 102.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really go on the forums either. I often found these players that probably were very famous, but I didn't realise at the time. A bit like Akinfeev on FM08, I always signed him. But he's obviously become a bit of like a legend in the Football Manager community. But at the time, I didn't know. But I found him on the game. Probably because it was quite easy to find him because he was just so good.
Just search for Daniel Bedingfield and you'll come up because he looks exactly like him.
Really?
Yeah, he really does.
Yeah.
Bedingfield's perhaps a bit chubbier, but facially, it's there. Yeah, you can Google that in your own time.
Yeah, well,
I think you'll agree with me.
Akinfeev was just... And when you see him in real life, I just expect him to be this unstoppable.
Well, every time
keeper.
I've seen him in real life, he's been pathetic.
I think he's a good keeper. He just has this mistake in him every match where there's just something. He's always
the Russian Paul Robinson.
Yeah, he can pull off some incredible saves and then just cock up really badly. And of course, there's that famous statistic about him not keeping a clean sheet in the Champions League for about 10 years now.
It is worrying. I think once you get to a point where you're seeing players that you've seen come through as either a wonder kid or, in real life, you've seen them come through as a youngster. Like I'm thinking, the one that sticks out in my mind particularly is David Beckham, because I've seen his entire career. As a footballer, I've been witness to his entire career. That is terrifying because it shows that you're aging. Yeah. And I think the next one that would scare me even more is Fabregas, because our birthdays are within the same month of the same year. So when he starts, he's getting on now, which means I'm equally getting on. And so when he retires at 36, I'll be like, oh God, that means I'm also 36. And then the realisation then sets in.
Try not to think about it.
That's probably the best thing. And also then you've got the comparisons of that. Oh, well, he's got, this wife and lots of money and everything. And then, there's me with none of that things. Or apart from a wife, who is very lovely, by the way. I should add that. Not that I'm contractually obliged to state that, but I wish to say that. in case she,
well done.
In case she decides to, stumble across this and listen and then think I'm slagging her off when I'm not.
Well, you've covered yourself there, I think.
I think I think so.
About.
Yeah, just about.
For me, it's someone like Jack Wilshere, because I'm 25 and he's 25 now, and I can't believe he's 25.
Yeah, he feels. Wait, he's been around for nearly 10 years. He burst onto the scene at 16, didn't he?
And about 9 years. And Wayne Rooney, for example, he started when he was 16, and now is he 31?
Yes.
But he seems to have been around for just like about a century.
Yeah, it's
terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying.
Crazy.
Hurtling.
But some players just burst onto the scene at such a young age, don't they? And others, it takes time for them to... Like Jamie Vardy, obviously, has only really just burst onto the scene in the last couple of years.
But then he's almost at the end of his career as well.
Yeah, and he's 30, isn't he? So, and Dimitri Payet as well.
But then I think with those, particularly in Vardy's case, he is so reliant upon pace, and those players they get found out very quickly once it starts disappearing, and which is why you get the likes of Ryan Giggs, who was very reliant upon pace when he was much younger, but once that started to dwindle, he moved centrally, didn't he? He had the technical ability to be able to play that role. Other players aren't as gifted as he was technically, and so they just drift out. And Vardy will be exactly the same. I can imagine.
Like Gareth Barry, who've never really had pace, and they just sit there forever.
It's the same as Sheringham. Like he
yeah,
never needed pace because he was such a classy player.
Yeah.
So when you're not reliant upon something, I'd imagine Theo Walcott will go the same way. He can't cross for toffee, and he can't.
What else is he going to do when he's lost his pace?
Yeah,
he can't be converted into a sweeper, can he?
No, and he's certainly not going to be a poacher.
I think I'll try that on Football Manager.
Experiment time.
Yeah.
Right.
I have tried some weird things, but not that.
I was going to say that's quite extreme. Can Theo Walcott be Matthias Sammer? That's probably a no. He's not even remotely ginger.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I think we're closing in on the final sort of round of questions. Really, it's kind of difficult because it's ongoing. So we'll discount Regen Rovers for this question. But would you ever be tempted to go back to one of your previous saves, whether it be one on YouTube or one sort of that you've enjoyed personally? Would you ever be tempted to go back and sort of replay?
I did actually go back to my FM11 Champs of City one recently. Back in the summer, I actually did a few videos on YouTube. But I kind of regret doing it because it didn't last long and I kind of gave up. I think I lost... I don't know what I was playing, but I only made a few videos and I literally can't remember what stage I got up to, but I think it was halfway through a season and I just stopped, which is never really a good idea on YouTube, but sometimes that's just the way it is. But because I'd got to, with this Champs of City save, I'd got to the Premier League and I'd played 2 seasons in the Premier League and also become manager of Morocco, which is very random. But I actually managed to win the World Cup with Morocco.
That ridiculous.
They produced these crazy regens, especially defensively, and one really good striker. So I became manager of Morocco. I won the Confederations Cup because they'd qualified for that after winning the African Nations. And then I stayed in control of Morocco for the 2 seasons after the Confederations Cup and managed to somehow win the World Cup, beating Spain in the final. So it was a 2022 World Cup. So that's where I finished, and I sort of felt that there was some unfinished business with Chelmsford City because I'd not won anything with them. I think I'd got to the Capital One Cup final, or whatever it was called back then, the Milk Cup, and then finished in 4th or 3rd place in the league, so I'd qualified for the Champions League, and that's where I stopped. So I felt there was unfinished business, so I thought I can actually go in and maybe try and win the Champions League. But after these few episodes on YouTube, I didn't manage to win the Champions League. I was sort of mid-table in the league, and I sort of regretted going back in a way, because it kind of tainted it, I suppose.
Would you be ever tempted to sort of maybe have a fresh start with one of them, the same team?
Yeah, well, I did actually, on FM15 with my Chumps to Champs save, which is probably my second favourite save on YouTube. So I managed Champs of City again and did exactly the same thing, except I got to the Premier League and then FM16 came out. So it's a similar story. I completed the goal of getting to the Premier League, but that's where it ended. And then FM16 came out and I started making Football Manager 2016 videos. So it was almost exactly the same thing. So one day I think I'd like to do a Champs of City save again from the start, but do it from the start of the new game and have the entire year to try and build them into the best team in the world or something like that. Because I've never won anything with them. Yeah. So I've never won anything with them in 2 attempts, but I've done very well with them because I managed to get them to the Premier League, but, never really completed the journey.
I mean, that's a bloody long slog.
Yeah,
to get there, and then it's not even a case of falling at the final hurdle, not even getting a chance to get to that final hurdle.
Yeah, I think the first attempt, it became a chore in the end, and I actually started focusing more on Morocco and trying to win the World Cup, which I did, which was amazing, but it kind of took away from the Chelsea City side of things. And then the second attempt, it was because FM16 came out, and I thought I had to make FM16 videos really for the channel, so I had to stop. I didn't have to stop, but I decided to stop.
I had a similar thing with once we got sort of to the end of 16. I'd already made my plans for what I was going to do for 17.
Yeah.
But I sort of rushed the end of Return of the Rovers, and I ended up I threw out 3 of the final episodes on like the last day.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Which is it kind of the final 2 were always planned to be sort of back to back on the same day because it was, it linked up to the end. So that like the last final bit was literally just like an end skit to finish it off and to set up the narrative to start the Recreativo thing, because I sort of carried it on a little bit. Yeah. But that was it. But I did feel a bit sort of sad that spoilers, but I'd only managed to win the the Europa League. That was like my final achievement. I'd have loved to have actually stood a chance of competing in the Champions League, because that's basically we by obviously winning the Europa League, we qualified for the Champions League, but not actually getting an opportunity to play in that was a bit annoying. And I don't want to I've still got the save and it's still in the same place, and it's quite interesting actually, because I'd planned to actually sim like 10 seasons in the future to see what happened post me, and so I did it and I never uploaded it, but it was very interesting reading. They actually Blackburn managed to sort of cement a place in the top 4.
Yeah. Oh wow.
For the next 3 seasons.
That was your hard work.
And I think they actually won the Europa League again as well. I think they got knocked out of the Champions League, but then won the Europa League the following year, which is obscene. And they kept most of the players, and then it wasn't until sort of 2 or 3 seasons after that they sacked the manager who'd replaced me, and then things really fell off a cliff, and they sort of dwindled into mid-table obscurity again. But
yes, I've always I wonder what other people do. Do they go back to old saves? Because you see people sort of playing multiple seasons on old games, but that's because they haven't bought a new game. When you buy a new game, you kind of forget about the old one in a way, and you don't go back to it.
This is why I thought it's an interesting question, because it depends on how people see it. Do they want to go back and actually try to do it, or do they want to just shelve it and think that was a nice memory and I'll leave it at that?
I think most people have in the back of their mind they'd love to go back, and then when they do go back, you've kind of forgotten half of what's going on. You look at your team, you think, wow, these are some old school names, I can remember this now, but then at the same time you can't remember it. You look at your tactic and think right, so this tactic, was this the one I used, or was it one I just sort of was fiddling around with? And that's the problem I had. I couldn't remember what was the tactic that I was actually using and having great success with. And you get really confused, because it's really hard to just go back and suddenly go straight back into it and go from where you left off. And that's what I found really difficult when I tried this Chumps of City thing on FM11 and going back to it for the first time in literally 5 years. That's a long time to not play a game and then go back to it and try and start again. But from that finishing point, it's incredibly difficult, because you just forget everything. You can remember certain things, and I loved this nostalgic trip of looking around the save, but then when I actually started playing it, I didn't actually enjoy it that much. I wish I'd just had a look and left it at that.
Yeah, just have a peep up a skirt, but not go any further. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crude reference. I couldn't help myself. I'm sorry. The amount of times you said fiddle in this podcast so far, and I've not said anything. It's built up. And
I'm impressed, considering the last couple of podcasts you've done. That you've gone there, haven't you?
I have. I'm sorry. I've had a few comments on other videos saying that I wish you'd stop the dick references. Well, I'm sorry. I've literally just signed 2 players in my Recreativo save. One called Dix, the other one called Willie. So
yeah, there's an 11-year-old boy in all of us, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, hang on a minute.
Wait. Okay. Let's not go. Great.
Good job Kev isn't on here right now. Jesus Christ. Lawsuits ahoy. Anyway, right. We'll swiftly move on to the next question before we start getting calls from Operation Nutri again. So
why did I say
as we're already on a sour note, this is going to be another one. By all means, you can say pass, and if you're not quite ready to admit to the world. But if you're willing to man up and front it, have you ever been sacked?
I have been, but only really recently. On the old games, I used to resign before I got sacked. I don't know if other people did that, but that's what I did.
It's not manly behaviour, is it?
I know it's not, but when you're 10 years old and you're manager of Man United, bottom of the league, losing 7-1 to Leicester, I thought, screw this, I don't want to be depressed for the rest of my life and get sacked, I'm going to resign. And that's what I was like back then. Running away from difficult situations. Yeah. But I've been sacked on FM16, but I had this series called Score One, Still One, which is a bit like it uses the editor, the in-game editor, and hashtag narrative.
I was waiting for it. I thought I'm going to stay quiet. I'm not saying anything. No one can persecute me anymore. I've not said anything. It's just the name. See, the name of the podcast works because it references that point, and that's all it does. So people know what it is, and also Social Media Genius. It's a well-known hashtag, so therefore it also works on that plane as well. See,
yes.
Marketing genius. Anyway, I'll let you carry on. Sorry.
Anyway, whenever basically, if I score a goal in a match, I steal a player. If I concede a goal, I lose a player. There was a few other rules involved, but obviously I used the in-game editor to swap players around. So the first attempt, I managed Swansea, thinking I'd pick a team that's sort of mid-table in the Premier League, but not too easy, because I don't want to end up winning the league and stealing every single player from every single club in the Premier League. But it went terribly wrong. I lost every player. I ended up with the under-18 squad, and I got sacked. It went horribly wrong. And then I tried it with Liverpool, and the same thing happened. So even with a better team, it didn't work. I don't know if it would have been a lot easier if I'd picked Man City or someone like that. I reckon it probably would have been. I might attempt that. I might attempt that again. But I don't know, haven't decided. It was a disaster, but it was quite funny. People seemed to enjoy me just failing miserably. So that's not really a conventional sacking, but I have been sacked. And I have been sacked on other games, but not on YouTube, I don't think, apart from Score One, Still One. But I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. I did the coward thing. I generally used to resign before I got sacked.
I don't know what's worse.
It's disgraceful behaviour, I know.
Yeah, it is. It's the jump before you push. It's.
I kind of feel that's the honourable thing, though, because I'm not taking the money. If I'm sacked, they give me a compensation package thing, don't they?
I suppose.
If I resign, I don't take any money. I'm leaving the club and letting them keep their money and just going on to green pastures.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully.
I see both points. I don't know which I agree with. Maybe like if you've earned, making your bedding and lying. I've messed that up royally. Making your bed and lying in it is what I was supposed to have said. Is one way of you just take. You've got to, you've caused a situation, so you've got to take the circumstances as they come. Oh dear. Or alternatively, you jump before you're pushed. I don't know.
I think the right thing to do in Football Manager is to wait and just get sacked. In real life, it's kind of nice if a manager resigns because your club's not then having to pay them a £5 million fee just because they've sacked them. If they resign, then they're just leaving, aren't they?
Yeah.
They probably still get money, to be fair. I don't know how this works. I don't know how football managers' sackings work because they're always getting sacked these days, aren't they? But you hear these massive fees that they receive when they're
off.
When they leave by mutual consent, as they say.
They say leave by mutual consent. I don't know how mutual that is. It's like you're leaving, okay then.
Yeah.
Or whether there's a little, I don't know, a little less pushing. I'm not sure. But they
who knows?
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever know.
Well, no, I don't think
the true details of football.
I don't think it would be right if we were to know. Like, if something was leaked, I don't think that would be overly fair because, like, imagine if you'd say you were sacked or left a job for whatever reason, and then they decided they were going to leak your information to the press and saying how much you earn, how much you earn from that. And it was just like, I wouldn't be particularly happy. So if it doesn't happen in real life, why would it happen then? Yeah,
exactly. I think football fans often want too much information, don't they? Or feel they deserve all this information.
I think it's such like football in general is such a bizarre business because generally you look at any other business, like look at retail, The manager is usually the person in a store that has the most power, other than obviously managers above them. But they have the most power. When really in football, the power pyramid is completely and utterly skewed.
The manager's basically at the bottom these days, aren't they?
Absolutely. They're the whipping boy. They take all the flack. They might not even be called a manager. Usually a head coach.
Yeah.
Like the director of football is above them. And then
they do all the transfers.
And then you've got the chairman, and then really you've got the top dogs, which are the players and agents, because they're the ones that command the money.
Of course the fans as well to the side.
Well, the thing is, I think the fans are almost like that. They're the equivalent of the consumer, aren't they? So they're the ones that think like they have power, but realistically they have diddly. Unfortunately, and that's horrible to acknowledge, but it's the truth. They can have as many opinions as they want, but ultimately they're not the ones making the decisions.
And you have even less power these days, because even if every fan decided not to go to a match, the club would still get a hell of a lot of TV money.
Absolutely.
Obviously, it would be a problem if no fans turned up. It wouldn't look good for the club and the club's image, etc. But financially, it's not as important for them now. No, it's because of all this TV money.
It's a scary prospect, though. Imagine it would be an interesting experiment to see what would happen. I mean, I know you see it occasionally in Italy once they, after corruption or crowd violence and what have you, they have to play games behind closed doors. And ultimately, I think that the game, from a fan's perspective, even if you were to stay away from the match and watch it on TV later, for example, you're the one that loses out because the atmosphere isn't there.
Yes.
So ultimately, you're shooting yourself in the foot either way. So it's not particularly conducive to particularly entertaining anything, to be honest. But yeah, it's such a skewed thing, because the people that earn the most money seemingly do the least amount of work.
Yeah,
it's a really, like, when you break it down like that, it's such a bizarre scenario. How has it come to that?
Yeah.
And why would you, even if it's just, even if you just use money as the I suppose the barometer for social standing, it's such it's just bizarre. You would never get it anywhere else, and it didn't used to be like that either. I don't I'm talking like a long time ago, like pre-war probably, but the managers would still be paid the most out of the play, more than the players. So at least there's that level of respect. And unless
they were probably the only ones full time, even.
Yeah, I would have thought so. And if you think about it in terms of I suppose that if a player's retired and then become a manager, they at least they have respect from the players from that perspective that they were a great player in their day.
Yes, yeah.
Whereas you get the other managers like Mourinho who get the respect from the achievements they've made.
Yes. And
their charisma and things like that. And then you don't really get any others sort of, you don't really get any, like, you've got the I'm going to pick him because it's quite a good example, and that's Andre Villas-Boas, who had come from being a scout with, like, that was, he was all about data and information, and he didn't really have much of a football background in terms of playing, and he made a reputation for himself for being basically Mourinho 2.0, and being that person who had analysed absolutely everything, but he didn't have the same charisma.
Yes.
He had a lovely voice, yes, but he didn't have the charisma of Mourinho, and also he didn't really have the success to back him up. Although at Porto he did fantastically.
I always wanted him to do well.
I did as well. He's a likeable character.
Yeah, he's a likeable guy. But
apparently
he's in China now, isn't he?
I believe so. He was at Zenit and then left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a journey.
He's been around a bit, and he certainly earned a pretty penny for not doing very well, apparently. So,
yeah. So I guess nowadays managers they have less power. In the old days, they'd have done everything. They'd have probably organised the cleaning rota for the stadium. Nowadays, managers just don't.
It's a bit of an arbitrary title now, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's not. They're not the manager, and Football Manager, the game, in a way, is unrealistic in that sense, because you have so much power that you wouldn't have in real life. But I'm glad. I know some people really want Football Manager to be really, really realistic, but I don't.
I think they would
because it
enjoy
wouldn't
it
be
less.
fun.
Yeah,
it wouldn't be a fun game. There are people that really want it to be properly realistic, but that just would not be fun, and it wouldn't be a game.
You can tailor it to sort of suit how you wish to play anyway. You can delegate as much as as much as the game allows you to play it. So I think it's better giving you the option to play that way if you choose to, than to force you one way or another.
Yeah, because you can just let your director of football do everything, or your assistant manager, or whatever.
Don't know why you do that. You have to be an insane person.
Yeah. It just wouldn't be fun, would it?
No.
And I want to have fun. It's a game at the end of the day. I don't want it to be really realistic. I want to just have a fun time playing a game that we all love.
Absolutely. And I think that's a very nice point to end on. So,
yes, I think so too.
Before we go, it would be rude for me to not let you plug your stuff. So where can people find you, Paul?
Thank you. Well, on Twitter, I'm at golden_FM. I didn't manage to get Golden FM because of... I mean, it sounds like a 50s radio station, really, doesn't it?
It does.
So I think there's some random Golden FM radio station that has never tweeted with that handle, which is a bit irritating, but never mind. On YouTube, youtube.com/goldenfm, that should take you to where I am.
Links will be in this description.
Thank you.
And welcome to Golden FM. Sorry, I had to put that in. So thank you for your time, Paul. I really appreciate you coming on and chatting to me about Football Manager and your sort of past stuff.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Excellent.
Quite random, but
yeah. Well, like random. Why would it not be?
Random is the best thing.
Random is the best.
It's good to be random.
So I'll now thank you all for listening. Thank you very much for your time. It's goodbye from Paul.
Bye.
It's goodbye from me. Please tickle that like button if you haven't done so already. Share and subscribe if you haven't done that already. And whilst you're here, why don't you snoop around and check out what else I'm doing. But anyway, it's goodbye from everyone else. Ta-ta for now.